Hey, welcome back. This is Chapter 4. Chapter 4 is all about building charts. So there's not going to be hardly any formula stuff, nothing really complicated where it's going to be mind-bending. This is actually going to be kind of a fun and lighthearted kind of a chapter. So, as always, let's start with the learning objectives. So turn to page 197 in your textbook and follow along. Okay. It says explore chart types, layouts, and styles. That's cool. Explore the positioning of chart. Yeah. Understanding different chart types, changing the data, editing chart formats to add emphasis, using sparklines and data bars, and recognizing and correcting confusing charts. That's kind of an important thing. So on the next page, they talk kind of in general terms about the whole idea of data visualization. And they basically, what they're talking about is, a lot of people are visual people, and given them rows and columns worth of massive amounts of data, their eyeballs just can't detect the patterns. They can't look at the numbers and go, oh yeah, I see our sales are increasing over time. Their eyes are just not like that. But just show them a chart of that exact same thing and they go, ooh, we have an upward trend. Easy to spot. It's the whole thing about, a picture is worth 1,000 words. That whole thing. Same thing. So there are some what they call business objectives, page 198, for doing charts. And there's three of them they list, reasons why you should do a chart, basically, in a business environment. One is what's called data exploration. So you've got a bunch of data, and basically you're trying to interpret what it means. So I've got tons of data and I want to know, am I doing good? What does all this mean? So that's data, exploring the data. That's one of them. The other one is what they call hypothesis testing. And this is where, like, you're comparing two things. You go, I think if we were to go to a second shift that our profits were going to increase, but I'm not absolutely certain because, I have to pay more for labor, and, and if our... So let's do a what-if analysis to determine if I go to a second shift and pay these extra people and produce more products, is my profit going to go up or my profit going to go down? Okay, cool. So comparison, kind of a which is better kind of a thing, those what-if analysis things. The next one is called argumentation, kind of a strange term. But what it basically means is I'm trying to make a point, whatever it is, and I need some graphics that demonstrate that concept. So the chart isn't really the data, it's the story. In other words, it's the journey, not the destination kind of a thing. In other words, the chart itself, the value of the chart is to promote the point of view. Okay, so that's what argumentation. So argumentation is about, telling the story that you want to tell. And of course, this is where you get into problems with misleading charts and stuff is, if you're a publicly traded company, for example, and you try to show some chart showing your, stock price is going to be increasing, and they don't, you could get in trouble. Okay, so they start off with doing, okay, I am going to use this SPA sales document that's in the student data files. It's what they use in the chapter in the book, so that's what we're going to use here. So let me just fire this guy up. And one of the things they talk about is, the first thing they talk about is modifying an existing chart. Okay, so we're not building one yet, we're just kind of modifying it. And so here is a chart that's kind of embedded in the middle of my document. And there's the way you select the chart to talk to it is kind of weird. It sometimes can be difficult if you click kind of in the middle somewhere to kind of select things. It's kind of odd. There's a technique that's called clicking on the border, where I just essentially I selected the chart, but I haven't selected any of the elements inside. See how I've got lots of other series and stuff? So one of the things they talk about is clicking the border. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm clicking the border. And right off the bat, you can tell that some of these things kind of changed colors when I did that, right? Let's do that again. Okay, there's no colors here. And so I click on the border of the chart and whammo. Okay, cool. So the highlighted areas, let's go through them. The purple, which you can't really see all that well, but the purple is what's called the legend. Okay, so that's what's going to be, it's going to show up as down here at the bottom. The blue part is the actual data, the data that makes up this pie chart as an example. And that red or green, depending on what version of Office you're using, is what's called the series. And so this is the series. Is kind of like, in this case, the series doesn't make any sense because we only have one series. But if I had like time used and quantity, you know, I had two series of data, then you'd have to kind of keep track of which one is which. You know, in the case of just one series, you don't really need a series label, but hey, that's what it is. And again, it's red in 2013 and green in 2010. God only knows why. Okay, let's continue. So, one of the things you can do when you click on one of these guys, if I hover, I can see what's going on. It says chart area, right? Okay. In the 2013 version, when I click on the chart, I get some extra buttons over here. A whole series of buttons. And they have a chart element button, which allow you to change like the title and the data labels and all the rest of that stuff. They have a chart style button, which we're going to go through and show in just a bit. And then some chart filters, which means I can go in here and make like one of these things go away. So how do you do that in the 2010 version is going to be slightly different. So I'm going to go here to these chart tool guys. Remember these little floating toolbars that pop up? Okay. So this allows me to, like, for example, to change the style. So I could go for, you know, a black and white, or I can do these kind of things. Just kind of flip through these guys, a bunch of these guys. I mean, you can go through and find all sorts of cool stuff in here. Let's just investigate the layout. Layout is basically, you know, here's the chart title and the legend, the data labels, all those things that were in the 2013 version in the book. It talks about, you know, going in there and changing you know, the data labels. What is a data label, as an example? Okay, oh, I mean, you know what a legend is, right? That's the part right down here. And you kind of can figure out what a chart title is. But what the heck is a data label? Well, let's turn one on. I'm going to turn it on. Think. What that means is that, not in this case, we're talking about a pie chart. It not only showed me the shape of the pie, but it put the numbers, the data labels, inside. Well, it doesn't actually have to be inside, but put the numbers on the chart. So instead of just having a bar, you know, or a column or a pie all by itself, it actually has whatever that element is, a bar or pie, and the number on top typically. Okay, so that's what a data label is. Unfortunately, I really can't demo the filtering concept from 2013 on the 2010 version, so we're going to move on. So one of the cool things that the 2013 version has, and the 2010 does not, is when you're looking at these chart layouts and chart styles, they have one that I call the ink saver. I mean, that's not the official name of it, but they have one of these things where you click on it, and instead of using just filled cells, you know, where there's a fill color, there's a pattern in there, you know, just stripes, so that like if you're printing a draft, you don't have to consume a great deal of your ink because it doesn't completely fill in the thing. Anyway, I kind of like that, and I wish the 2010 version had that as well. One of the things they talk about next is I want to be able to move the chart. So there's a thing here for moving a chart. First of all, let's back up. One is I could just grab anywhere inside my chart and just hold the mouse down and kind of nudge this guy around, right? Cool. So I'm going to put him right here. Now, if I insert a row here, or a column rather, if I insert a column, what's going to happen? Well, the thing got bigger. It expanded. And you might think, well, that's kind of weird. I'm going to undo that. Because even though this guy's kind of floating around, he's kind of half floating on top of the cells, and at the same time kind of being aware of how many columns and rows is actually taking up. And so there is a way you can go into the properties of this guy and say, you know, I really don't want you to change sizes when I add or delete a row or a column. And so that's one of the things we can do. So I'm going to go back to here. And so chart move basically comes up and says, Where would you like this thing to go? Well, a lot of people will deliberately put charts on a separate worksheet. And, you know, they'll have worksheets, like, for example, we got a gazillion worksheets down here, down at the bottom. But instead of having graphics in the same worksheet as your data, some people prefer to go in here and just create a new one. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to create a new worksheet and hit the button. And so this is a new worksheet. Now the worksheet looks a little funky because it doesn't have the same view as you're expecting. So it's kind of a special one. Anyway, some people find this very appealing because you don't see the rows and columns, you don't see anything, you don't actually see the data. All you see is just the graphic. Okay, it's kind of cool. I'm going to go back to here. Okay, so most people, if you have a chart already there and you want to move it, you can just drag it around. You can resize it with the resize handle. And I'm not going to show you the part about going in and tweaking it to make it not follow along, not expand or contract. Okay, and then moving it, when you move it, you can move it to another worksheet. You can move it to another, all sorts of other things. And this worksheet idea, I can see how that could be of some advantage to folks. Okay. Let's continue. On page 202, they finally get around to talking about, okay, now that you've got the idea how to edit the existing chart, let's build one ourselves. Wouldn't that be a cool idea? Okay, so on page 202, they talk about this thing called a quick analysis tool. Basically what happens is, if I go in here and select a bunch of data, okay, for a chart to work, typically, you're going to need at least two parts. You're going to need the data part, and you're going to need some sort of labels. Because if I was just to lasso just this, okay, can I produce a chart with those numbers? Yeah, I could. Would you be able to tell what the heck it was? I mean, is this what? Traffic stops? The number of kumquats picked? I mean, so without the data labels to go with it, you're kind of spinning around. So typically when you're building a chart, it takes at least 2 columns, 2 rows, whatever the orientation is. So I'm lassoing this. Now, in the 2013 version, there's a little doodad that shows up right here, and it's called the Quick Analysis Tool. And the Quick Analysis Tool allows me to immediately create and look at charts at the same time. Now, this is the 2010 version, so we're not quite doing that. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to say insert. So I'm inserting what? I'm inserting a chart. What kind of chart? And you can go in there and kind of pick the one you want. So for example, let's do a column chart, since that seems appropriate. So I'm going to go here and hit the column chart, and then it's going to ask me what kind. This is what's called a normal column chart. This is one's called stacked, meaning that's on top of each other. And this is one's kind of sort of like a pie chart where everything is at the top and just shows you the ratio of the two. I'm going to grab this original one, which is a clustered column. Okay, so there is my data shown as a chart. Kind of cool. Not much to this. Now the problem is this may not be exactly what you want. For example, I did not pick the series name. Shame on me. I should have picked something a little better than that. So my series is actually the number of massages, but hey, I didn't pick that. Okay, so in 2013, it is a little bit easier because you got this little doodad that pops up here, and then you can switch down just like they do in the book. Switch down and go to the charts, and then you get to preview what the chart's gonna sort of look like. And when you find the one you want, you hit the button and press O change O. Your chart magically appears on the screen. Okay, this is probably a good place to stop for the 15-minute mark. We'll pick this thing up again in just a few.